They told you it was just salt, just water, just a toilet. They told you these were ordinary things, mundane, utilitarian, unremarkable. They told you these objects had no real meaning, no hidden depth. They told you to stop looking for mystery where there was only plumbing, to stop looking for symbolism where there was only routine. But the truth is far older than those dismissals. The truth is far more intimate. The truth is that some of the most powerful rituals on earth are concealed inside the ordinary, hidden in plain sight, like secret codes etched into everyday life. These rituals do not take place on high mountain peaks or inside marble temples hung with golden bells. They do not require incense, exotic powders, or chanting crowds to summon their power. They live instead in small spaces, bathrooms, kitchens, thresholds, back rooms. They live in private moments when no one is watching. They live in gestures so simple, they're invisible. This is where transformation actually begins, not in the dramatic moment of enlightenment, but in the quiet act you've stopped questioning, the act you've done so many times, it no longer feels like it could hold magic at all. When you drop salt into a toilet bowl, you may believe you're simply casting a spell or indulging in superstition. You may think you're only playing with folklore, but you're not. You're making a decision. You're choosing to let go. You're cleansing not only your environment, but also your internal state. The gesture is physical, yes, but its echo reaches far beyond the water. It moves through your mind, your emotional landscape, the subtle layers where your oldest patterns hide. Salt and water together form a signal your nervous system has known for thousands of years, a cue to release, to cleanse, to return to balance. Across centuries, across cultures, across continents, monks, warriors, mystics, healers, and household keepers all understood something modern people have mostly forgotten. Salt holds power, not mystical power in the fantasy novel sense, but psychological and energetic power. Salt absorbs what the mind clings to. It draws out heaviness. It neutralizes stagnation. It preserves what matters and purifies what does not. In the old Shaolin training halls, before the first bow, before the first breath of meditation, before the first disciplined movement of the body, there was always a moment of purification. Salt and water were not trivial supplies to be overlooked. They were a doorway. Cleansing was not just hygiene. It was a way of clearing intention, of preparing the inner space so the outer practice could have meaning. Salt water flowing, intention loosening, old weight dissolving. This was the first movement before all others. And yet, this is not superstition. This is sacred psychology. It is the language of the unconscious, older than any written word. When you pick up salt and drop it into water, you're not simply performing a household task. You're speaking to the oldest parts of your mind in a dialect. They still understand substance, gesture, release. You're not flushing a substance, you're flushing a pattern. The salt is the signal, the water is the passageway, the act of flushing is the letting go. In this teaching, I'm going to show you how a single silent act, done with presence and deliberate focus, can shift the energy in your home and, more importantly, in your life. We will explore the ancient symbolism of salt, the meaning of water as a spiritual gate, and the simple mechanics of combining intention with movement to dissolve what many call curses, not curses cast by others, but the patterns of pain, fear, and repetition you unknowingly cast upon yourself. Stay with me until the end, because this is not about one act or one moment. It is about a way of living, a way of remembering. The moment you begin to practice it daily, you will feel the shift, not as fireworks outside of you, but as a quiet clarity rising within. You are not powerless. You have simply never been trained, but training begins now. Welcome to our channel. Subscribe to walk this path with us and let the smallest acts become gateways to the deepest freedom. Most people think the body is where release ends. They think it's the limit, the last stop. But in Shaolin, we know the body is only the surface. Real release happens deeper, in the layers of the mind and heart, where thoughts gather, where emotions stick, where silent stories loop without interruption. This is the true battlefield. This is where freedom is either claimed or lost. Every single day, without a second thought, you flush away what your body no longer needs. You don't hesitate. You don't question the process. Waste is waste. It doesn't belong inside you. But how many people carry emotional waste inside for years, decades even? Resentment, regret, guilt. Loops of thought that serve nothing but still circle the mind like restless ghosts. We hold on to these as if they're permanent, as if they're part of our identity, while discarding physical waste instantly. This inversion keeps us trapped. In the monastery, even cleaning is meditation. Sweeping the floor is not just about clearing dust, it's about clearing the mind. Washing your bowl after a meal is not just preparing for food, it's honoring presence. Every action is a mirror. The same principle applies here. Dropping salt into the toilet, watching it dissolve, and flushing it away is a physical reminder: I do not need to carry everything. I choose what stays, I choose what leaves. This is the quiet revolution available to you at any moment. Salt has always been sacred, across continents, across ages. It has purified, preserved, and absorbed. Ancient Egyptians used it to honor the dead. Japanese traditions scatter it at doorways for cleansing. African spiritualities employ it to ward off harmful energy. Celtic and Norse traditions salted thresholds and windowsills. Salt has traveled across trade routes and rituals alike. Yet here in your own small ritual, it becomes something even more intimate, a conversation between you and your awareness. You are saying to yourself, I see what I've been holding, and now I choose to release it. This is not about force. It's not about dramatic transformation. It's about small, consistent reminders to live lighter, to move cleaner, to think clearer. And when your mind begins to treat emotional weight like physical waste, something to be recognized and released rather than hoarded, you begin to experience freedom, not as an abstract ideal, but as a daily practice, one handful of salt at a time. A curse is not always loud. It does not require fire, chanting, or an enemy wishing you harm. Most curses live quietly inside. They hide in repetition, the same reaction, the same mistake, the same story you keep telling yourself. This always happens to me. That's the real curse. Not an outside force, but an inner loop that refuses to break. This is the prison of habit, the invisible architecture of suffering. In Shaolin, training to break these loops is not exotic. It begins with the smallest acts: pouring tea, washing rice, stretching fingers, breathing into the spine. The ritual of salt water in the toilet is no different. It's a modern translation of an ancient principle to make the invisible visible, to give the unconscious a form it can interact with. You're not fighting shadows anymore. You're giving your mind an action to anchor its release. Consider the threefold meaning of this act. Salt as the agent. It absorbs, neutralizes, and draws out. In chemistry, salt can precipitate or separate. In the psyche, it does the same. It helps name what you're ready to let go of. Water as the gate. Water carries everything downstream. It is the universal solvent, the great carrier. In myth, it's the river Styx, the baptismal pool, the rainstorm that ends drought. Water receives and moves. The flush as the seal. The flush is the moment of release. It's the symbolic closing of the gate, the physical motion that tells your nervous system, it's done, it's gone, it's released. When you combine these three, you're not merely disposing of salt water, you're practicing the art of embodied letting go. You're teaching your nervous system that release is safe, normal, and complete. Over time, this practice reconditions the mind. It begins to expect release rather than accumulation. It starts looking for ways to lighten itself. You may find that after a few weeks of this ritual, your thoughts are clearer, your emotional reflexes softer, your body more at ease. This is not magic in the Hollywood sense. This is nervous system training, ritual as somatic reprogramming. You can intensify this practice by pairing it with breath and visualization. As you hold the salt in your hand, breathe deeply, acknowledging what you're ready to release. As you drop it into the water, see the heaviness dissolving. As you flush, exhale, and imagine the pattern draining away, leaving space inside you. This simple act can become a 3-minute meditation that resets your state several times a week. And don't underestimate the cumulative power of small rituals. A single push-up won't transform your body, but 50 push-ups a day for 6 months will. A single moment of focused release won't dissolve a lifetime of patterns, but repeated moments create a new baseline. They carve a new groove in your mind's riverbed. They teach your unconscious, there is another way. Salt rituals also remind you of your agency. In a world saturated with external demands and internal noise, the very act of choosing to release is a declaration of sovereignty. It's you saying, I get to decide what I carry. I get to decide what leaves. No guru can do this for you. No priest can absolve you. You do it with your own hands, your own salt, your own water. As you continue, you may notice that salt stops being just salt, water stops being just water, the toilet stops being just a toilet. Everything becomes a mirror, a medium. You begin to see that the ordinary is not an obstacle to spiritual practice, but its secret ally. This is the alchemy of daily life, turning habit into ritual, turning release into freedom. There's also a humility in working with such common elements. Salt costs almost nothing. Water flows in every home. The toilet is a fixture of modernity. You don't need to climb a mountain or fly to a retreat center. You don't need expensive crystals or rare herbs. You need presence, intention, and follow through. This is accessible power. This is the democratization of practice. By reframing the ordinary, you recover an ancient wisdom. Spirituality was never about escape from daily life. It was about penetration into daily life, seeing its layers, its textures, its hidden gates. When the Buddha washed his bowl, when monks sweep monastery floors, when warriors bathe before battle, they're doing exactly this, entering the sacred through the ordinary, salt, water, flush, that's all. And as you embody this principle, you may notice your relationship with your inner stories changing. Those repetitive curses, I'm always unlucky, people always betray me, I'll never be enough, start losing their charge. You begin to see them as old salt, ready to be dissolved. You start developing an instinct to flush them away, not out of denial, but out of discipline. You become your own alchemist, turning stale patterns into fresh space. This practice also cultivates respect for your environment. When you treat your bathroom as a temple, your kitchen as a dojo, your desk as an altar, you begin to inhabit your life differently. Cleaning becomes devotion, cooking becomes creation, even discarding waste becomes an opportunity to practice freedom. You stop waiting for a sacred space somewhere else. You start making sacred space right where you are. In time, this shifts your identity. You no longer see yourself as a passive vessel, absorbing life's events, but as an active participant, shaping your inner landscape. Salt and water, gesture and release. These become your tools, and as you train, you may find that your capacity to handle life's challenges grows. You become less reactive, more grounded, quicker to reset. This is the fruit of practice. So when someone scoffs and says, it's just salt, you'll smile quietly. You'll know they're seeing only the surface. You'll know that behind the mundane gesture lies an ancient code, a signal to your deepest self. You'll know that you are not just flushing salt, you're flushing limitation, stagnation, and stories that no longer serve you. And if you teach this to others, remind them of the key: intention matters. Without intention, it's just salt and water. With intention, it's an act of liberation. Encourage them to start small, to be consistent, to notice how their inner world responds. Encourage them to see that spiritual practice need not be dramatic to be effective. The quietest rituals often do the deepest work. Ultimately, the ritual of salt water in the toilet is a living metaphor for everything else. It says, I am not bound to what I've been carrying. I can choose release. I can choose clarity. I can make space for what's next. Every flush is a rehearsal for freedom. Every handful of salt is a seed of sovereignty. Every moment of deliberate letting go is a step toward remembering who you really are. Let the smallest acts become gateways to your deepest freedom. Let salt, water, and release teach you the language of transformation. This is how the ordinary becomes extraordinary. This is how you reclaim the power you already hold. This is how you train, not once, not occasionally, but as a way of living. This is how you turn daily life into a dojo, into a temple, into a laboratory of liberation. In the heart of the Shaolin Temple, where ancient stones hold the whispers of 1,000 masters, we understand the world in cycles. The sun rises and sets, the seasons turn, the breath flows in and out, and within each of us, there spins a deeply personal cycle, a loop of energy, thought, and action that feeds itself. We call this a karmic cycle. It is not a punishment, not a sentence from the universe, but a pattern, a groove worn so deep in the path of your mind that your wheels naturally fall into it, day after day, year after year. When you are unaware of this cycle, it owns you. You wake up already tense, bracing for a day you haven't even lived yet. A rude email arrives, and you react with the same hot flash of anger you felt yesterday. A challenge appears, and the same chorus of I can't begins its familiar chant in your mind. You move through your routines on autopilot, thinking the same thoughts, driven by the same hidden fears and desires. And at the end of the day, you look around and wonder with a quiet exhaustion, why does nothing ever change? So you try harder. You read books on productivity. You set louder alarms. You run faster on the treadmill of life, muscles burning, breath ragged, determined to break free. But you never leave the loop. You only run its circumference more frantically. You see, you cannot break a loop by running within it. The loop is the running. The only way to break a loop is to stop, to cease the motion, to step out of the current. This is where true mastery begins, not with a spectacular burst of effort, but with a profound and deliberate stillness. And I must be clear, stillness is not the absence of motion. It is not zoning out or going blank. It is the presence of a deep, unwavering awareness. It is the conscious choice to be the observer of the storm, not the victim tossed within it. When you finally sit, breathe, and truly look within, without the filter of blame for others or fear of yourself, you begin to see the pattern clearly for the first time. You see the trigger that sparks the anger. You see the thought that births the anxiety. You see the habit that leads to the regret. And this act of seeing is the most powerful magic there is. Once you see the mechanism of the loop, you are no longer trapped inside it. You are no longer the program running. You are the programmer who can see the code. You are standing above it, observing it, holding it at a distance. This simple, courageous act of witnessing is the first crack in the curse. The legendary discipline of a Shaolin monk, then, isn't just in the spectacular movement, the powerful kicks, or the perfect forms. It is in the quality of our attention. We train for hours to observe ourselves with surgical precision. Every habit, every trigger, every emotional reflex that arises. We do not fight the curse. we study it, we get to know its shape, its roots, its rhythm intimately. We understand its every move, and then, without drama or struggle, we do the one thing it cannot survive. We change our response, not with violence or desperate force, but with a calm, gentle repetition, a different breath taken, a different word chosen, a different pause inserted before reacting. That is how a deep-seated pattern dies. Not all at once in a blaze of glory, but piece by piece, moment by moment, through unwavering awareness and aligned action. You don't need to shout at your demons. You don't need a grand battle. You simply need to stop feeding them. And in that fertile stillness, where the loop once lived, a new path quietly appears, not cursed, not chaotic, just clear. This is the profound discipline of not reacting. This is the incredible strength of stillness. And this discipline doesn't begin when the training bell rings. It begins in the soft, quiet moments of the day. It begins the very second you wake up, with how you place your feet on the cold floor, with the first conscious breath you take before you even sit up, with the intention you set before your mind can start racing. Every single moment, from the most mundane to the most dramatic, is an invitation to return to yourself, to choose awareness over autopilot. This is a vital truth. Shaolin monks are not monks only in the temple. They are monks while folding their robes with meticulous care. They are monks while gathering water from the well, feeling the weight of the bucket in their hand. They are monks while chopping vegetables in the kitchen, their focus absolute, their movement efficient and calm. This is the very heart of the path, that nothing, absolutely nothing, is too ordinary to be sacred. We were taught this from our earliest days. The external tempo of your life is a direct reflection of your internal one. If your inner world is frantic and cluttered, your outer world will be too. If you wait for the perfect place, the perfect quiet time, the perfect serene setting to be present, you will miss the entire point. The practice is now, always now. It is available to you in the middle of your busy kitchen, in your morning commute, in the walk to your mailbox. Even in something as simple, as seemingly insignificant, as dropping a pinch of salt into a bowl of water, there is a choice to rush through it, thinking it's just a silly superstition, or to feel the full weight of the granules between your fingers, to infuse the act with the intention of what you are releasing, to let the sound of the water swirling be more than just noise, to let it be a sign, a ceremony, a declaration that you are done holding on to what needs to go. This is the shift that changes everything, the shift from empty routine to meaningful ritual, from merely doing to truly being. The salt is not powerful on its own. It becomes powerful when it carries your intention. The water is not holy on its own. It becomes holy when you meet it with your full, undivided attention. This is what real mastery looks like in daily life. Not a cold, sterile perfection, but a warm, living presence, a kind of inner silence that watches each of your own acts with deep care and respect. When you begin to bring this quality of mindfulness into your smallest actions, the world around you begins to change, not because life itself is suddenly different, but because you are. The training moves out of the abstract and into your very hands, your breath, your gaze. Suddenly, even the most ordinary corner of your home, your cluttered desk, your dusty bookshelf, becomes a temple, not because it looks sacred, but because you treated it as sacred. You met that moment with your whole self. A thought without movement is like a precious seed left in dry soil. It holds beautiful potential, but nothing ever grows. And movement without thought is just noise, empty of meaning and direction. The true art of mastery lies in the sacred meeting point between the two, where a clear intention sharpens an action, and a conscious action brings that intention to life. Salt sitting idly in a jar does nothing. A wish spoken silently into the air, without any corresponding motion, simply dissolves. But when you take that salt, when you place it deliberately into water with full awareness, when your breath slows to meet the moment, your thoughts align with your purpose, and your hands move not with haste, but with meaning, then something deeper than the physical world begins to shift. This is not superstition, it is alignment, it is integrity between your inner and outer worlds. In all ancient practices, every movement was tied to a meaning. A bow was not just a gesture, it was the physical embodiment of humility. A breath was not just air moving in and out, it was an anchor to the present moment. The body and mind were never meant to work alone. One guides with intention, the other anchors with action. When you act with this kind of clarity, the energy changes, not necessarily in the room around you, but absolutely within you. You start to trust yourself more. You follow through on the promises you make to yourself. You become reliable to your own spirit, and that builds a core strength, a self-trust that no one can give you from the outside. Discipline is born in the body, but its roots grow deep in the mind. You must train both together, not just on the training floor, but everywhere, in the silence of your living room, in the rhythm of chopping vegetables in your kitchen, late at night when no one is watching, and you choose to put something away instead of leaving it out, especially then. This is a quiet power, not dramatic, not loud, not seeking applause, but steady, patient, and unshakable. It is the kind of strength that grows one tiny conscious act at a time, a hand reaching for salt, not with superstition, but with symbolism, a breath taken deeply before you pour, a calm, inner voice gently saying, I choose to release this, I let this go, I return to my center. Now, look around your space, not with judgment, but with curiosity. See the clutter on the floor, the dust in the corners, the stack of papers, the jacket on the chair, the objects out of place. They speak, not in words, but in feeling. They create a low, constant hum of visual noise. When the outer world is tangled and disordered, the inner world rarely stays calm. And when the mind is clouded and overwhelmed, it begins to tolerate chaos without even questioning it. It becomes the new normal. In Shaolin life, we clean not just for appearance, but for alignment. A swept floor, an ordered room, a clean and quiet corner. These are not mere luxuries or signs of obsession. They are necessary acts of self-respect, because the space around you is not separate from you. It is an extension of your mind. It holds your thoughts. It carries your energy. It either supports your stillness or constantly agitates it. So, placing salt in water or cleaning a room may seem like a small physical thing, but it's part of something much larger, a practice of energetic hygiene. It is a way of saying to the universe and to yourself, I care for what is unseen. I honor the invisible atmosphere I live in. I consciously clear the stagnant energy. I flush out the weight I no longer need to carry, not just from the visible corners of my room, but from the invisible field that surrounds and shapes my entire being. This isn't about being perfect or obsessive. It's about becoming conscious. You start to notice, with startling clarity, how much noise is hiding in your environment, how the clutter on your desk translates directly into a knot of tension in your shoulders, how the pile of dirty dishes in the sink feeds a quiet, background frustration. It's all connected. The outer and the inner are in a constant, intimate dance. And once you see this connection, you can no longer unsee it. You can no longer ignore it. So you clean, not just to make things look better for guests, but to feel clearer within yourself. You open up space, not just in your home, but in your own heart. You invite calm in by consciously removing what doesn't belong. And when you do this regularly, when this conscious care becomes a gentle rhythm, your environment stops pulling you down into distraction. It starts to lift you up, to support your path, to quietly remind you throughout the day, peace is not found somewhere else. It is created right here by you, one clear space at a time. It is crucial to understand that freedom isn't something you reach once and keep forever. It is not a mountain you climb, plant your flag at the summit, and call it done. Real freedom, the kind that lives in your body, your breath, and your mind, requires rhythm. It requires return. It is a verb, not a noun. In Shaolin, nothing of value is practiced only once. We breathe, we move, we sit in meditation, we observe our minds again and again and again, not because we are forgetful or stupid, but because we understand a fundamental law of nature: clarity fades when it is not refreshed. Dust settles on everything, both on our furniture and on our awareness. Old patterns, like determined weeds, creep back in when we look away. The mind, left unattended, will always drift back to its old, familiar noise. That is precisely why discipline matters, not for the purpose of control or punishment, but for liberation. It is the daily practice of brushing the dust off your soul. Cleansing is no different. You cannot pour salt into water once and expect to be clean for life. You cannot release a heavy thought or an old grudge once and believe it will never return. You flush, you let go, and then, maybe the next hour, maybe the next day, you feel the weight beginning to gather again. So you do it again. You train yourself to reset, not with a sigh of effort, but with the natural rhythm of the tide, which always pulls back to then push forward again. This rhythm is the very heart of mastery, not dramatic, one-time change, but a steady, loving return to your center. Like waves patiently smoothing a rough stone, like a breath softening a tense body, the practice itself transforms you. You become lighter, not because the world has suddenly become an easy place, but because you have learned the art of release consistently, consciously, and calmly. Some days, it's a small release, a single deep breath before answering a provoking email, a single handful of salt, a quiet 3-second pause before speaking in anger. Other days, it feels deeper, more profound, like you've finally poured out something old and hidden that you've been carrying for years. But the key is to keep showing up, to meet yourself daily with compassion and curiosity, to trust that each small, seemingly insignificant act is a vital part of your greater transformation. In this rhythm, you eventually stop chasing freedom like a distant prize. You start to live it as a daily practice, as a conscious choice you make every single day. When fear or anxiety or anger rises within, the modern instinct is to immediately reach for a distraction, turn on the TV, scroll through a phone, call a friend to gossip, eat something, anything to not feel the discomfort. We push the darkness down, away from our awareness, where we think it's gone, but it is not gone. It is simply waiting in the shadows, where it grows stronger. Shaolin teaches a different way, a courageous way. When the mind is storming, when emotion swells like a wave, when something bitter and dark rises from within, the instruction is deceptively simple. Sit, be still, breathe. Do not run from it. Do not wrestle with it. Do not even try to fix it. Just let it rise fully, let it be seen, and let it leave on its own. This conscious allowing goes against everything we've been taught, that all problems require immediate fixing, that all pain must be avoided at all costs. But not all healing is loud. In fact, some of the deepest, most permanent cleansing comes in the utter silence of non-resistance. When you allow the mind to settle on its own, when you stop feeding the story with your frantic energy, when you simply observe the darkness without judgment or fear, it begins to dissolve on its own. It loses its power over you. Salt, in this sacred practice, becomes a powerful symbol, a physical container for what you are releasing, a tangible way to name the invisible poison and flush it from your space. But always remember, the salt is a tool, a prop, a focus. It is not the answer itself. The answer is always and forever your presence, your stillness, The quiet courage to stay seated within yourself when everything inside you feels heavy and wants to run. There is immense power in not reacting, in not needing to scream, to explain, to control the situation or the person. That cultivated stillness, calm, grounded, and alert, is what truly transforms you. Not all at once in a cinematic moment, but moment by moment, breath by breath, as you gently teach your own nervous system a new truth. We don't need to run, we don't need to fight. We are safe right here, in this moment, just as we are. And so you sit. You breathe, you let the feeling rise. You watch it, you let it go. Not through force, not through drama, but through the profound discipline of presence, through a silence within you that is strong enough to hold the entire storm without being shaken by it. The real curse, you see, is not outside of you. It isn't a rival's words, a bad luck charm, or some unseen force chasing your steps. The true curse, the only one that has any real power, is the curse of forgetting. Forgetting who you truly are when the noise of the world gets loud. Forgetting to breathe when fear tightens your chest. Forgetting your path when comfort and convenience call out more seductively than truth. It starts so slowly, so innocently. You hit snooze and skip your morning moment of quiet. You rush through your day, barely tasting your food. You silence that small, wise voice inside that whispers, "Slow down, or this isn't right for you." And over time, a distance grows, a gap between you and your discipline, between you and your deeper, calmer self. That is how the curse takes root. Not through magic, but through simple, daily neglect. But here is the most beautiful and hopeful thing. It is always reversible. Always. One moment of remembrance can pull you back across that gap. One conscious breath, one act of full presence, one quiet ritual done with sincere attention, like placing salt in water, can reconnect the broken thread. This is why these small rituals matter so deeply, not because they hold any magic in themselves, but because they remind you of your own magic. They are signals you send to your own mind, a gentle alarm clock for the soul. Come back, wake up, be here now. In all ancient wisdom, remembrance was everything. That is what true discipline is. Not punishment, not harsh control, but memory. The body remembers how to move with grace. The breath remembers how to find calm. The spirit remembers its connection to something larger. And when you align with that deep memory, the fog of forgetfulness begins to clear. The curse fades the very moment you choose to remember. You choose to return, and every single return makes you stronger, more resilient. You remember that you are not the chaos, not the fear, not the looping pattern. You are the awareness behind it all. You are the calm within it. You are the one who can always begin again, no matter how far you feel you've drifted. That knowing, that unwavering self-trust, is true sovereignty, and that is the entire path. Mastery isn't loud. It doesn't need to be seen to be valid. It shows up in the quietest choices, in how you breathe through a moment of discomfort, in how you clean your space as an act of self-care, in how you consciously let go of a thought that no longer serves you. Even something as simple, as small, as dropping salt into water becomes a powerful reminder. I am not trapped by my past. I am not defined by my patterns. In this moment, I can choose. I can begin again. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to wait for a Monday, a new month, or a new year. All you need is the willingness to return, to make your daily life your practice, your silence, your strength, your presence, your greatest protection. So the next time the old pattern returns, as it will, don't fight it, don't hate it, just notice it. Name it quietly. Ah, there you are, old fear. And then, with compassion, release it. Again and again and again, without fear, without noise, without drama. That is how the new path unfolds. quietly, consistently, right in the palm of your own hand. Thank you for walking with us on this path. If this teaching spoke to you, if it felt like a remembering, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more. Until next time, stay grounded in your practice and keep releasing.